State Democrats say tens of thousands of Georgians could lose their health care under the governor's new plan. Georgia House Minority Leader Bob Trammell, along with Democratic candidates for the state house, say Medicaid needs to expand in Georgia. They say Governor Kemp's health care waiver plan will cause people to lose access to care and coverage. Trammell says it could lead to more rural hospitals closing, which could be devastating to Georgia's poorest families.
Since before the pandemic began, rural hospitals have been in trouble in Georgia and have closed at an alarming rate. This summer, Southwest Georgia Regional Medical Center announced that it was closing its doors. And our rural hospitals are more likely to close because Georgia is a state that hasn't expanded Medicaid when compared to hospitals, similarly situated hospitals in the 38 states that have expanded Medicaid.
Governor Kemp announced last week the Georgia Pathways and Access program, saying it would provide more affordable insurance to those who otherwise could not afford it. His plan offers federally subsidized health insurance to Georgians, but only through private brokers. That's different from the Affordable Care Act.
And I'm going to pick it up here, Cheryl. We have some microphone issues here that we'll deal with now. Let's go back to what Cheryl was saying. His plan offers federally subsidized health insurance to Georgians, but only through private brokers. Now, that is different from the Affordable Care Act marketplace, which uses government-based providers. The governor says it will increase competition among providers and lower premiums as well. Now, this program does not expand Medicaid. Instead, under a separate measure, some of Georgia's lowest income residents can qualify if they work, if they volunteer, or if they receive job training or attend school. Critics, though, say this could significantly reduce access. One analysis by a policy group, the Brookings Institute, says that Georgia's health care waivers will likely lead to tens of thousands of Georgians losing their health coverage. Their report says the plan would eliminate ACA exchanges as a possible source of health care without other incentives for new health insurance business. Now, you will find more on the Georgia healthcare debate on 11alive.com.